it is that though. You get to like not you get to experience like beginner's mind. They talk about in Eastern philosophy, where you experience reality as though it is for the first time with the skill set that you already have, and you get to interact with it and create, and it's amazing. Yeah, that's being alive. That's the best part of being alive, I think.
Oh, shit. I'm back. Podcast. It's been a while. I took the summer off, but it's been good. Season 2, I guess? You could call this, I don't know, 9 episode seasons. Fuck you, it's the internet. I do what I want. Brandon's here. This one's good for like a season premiere. And it's like fall TV, except with way less fake acting bullshit. It's really good. We talk about the meaning of life. We talk about like personal stories with experiences and times and stuff. And we kind of touch on like some modern shit. It's really good. Actually, you decide for yourself. I'm not going to put an assumption on this. If you want to email me, it's ericshotboxpodcast@gmail.com. That's also the page that it's on YouTube, the YouTube landing page. Not too much else. I'm going to Mexico soon. Christmas is coming. Not too much else going on. Enjoy the episode. Here we go.
I don't know anything about Gwyneth Paltrow. You brought up a book about Is Gwyneth Paltrow Wrong About Everything by Timothy Caulfield, which you can get for $9.99 on Amazon.ca.
Yeah, it was a really good book. My wife bought it for me, and it like pretty much goes point for point of all these crazy things that she has on her website, from like vaginal steaming to doing like weird cleansing diets and all this other like crazy diet shit to help you lose weight and be a healthy person. And he just like takes a rational, logical, step-by-step approach about why this stuff is bullshit and why it's not going to save your life, and how people get like clickbait addicted to dumb ideas.
Yeah, they do. I have been arguing so much on Facebook.
I noticed you're like really popular lately. Some of them have been fun to read.
Good.
Like I want to just put in that meme of Michael Jackson eating popcorn, being like, "I'm just here for the comments."
I haven't seen that meme yet. I had to search it because someone was like getting Michael Jackson on that shit. But man, people are crazy, and the craziest thing is the fear that people have of being outed as amoral or, you know, racist or a Nazi or whatever. People come up with the most creative ways of shaming each other and kind of let each other know that it's open season on this person's character. Or
it seems like it takes the smallest little detail that you say that someone like just runs a mile with. Like they take one word out of a sentence that you're saying and use that to justify breaking down every redeemable part of your character and as a human being. Like you all of a sudden want to kill puppies and like light rainbows on fire, and you are now like never to be dealt with again. Like that's the craziest thing to me, is that no one can just say something and fuck it up.
Right. So you're saying I fucked it up is what you're saying.
Not at all. I'm saying that.
I'm joking.
I really like where did it start? Like walk me through the first little bit of like, holy shit, that touched a nerve.
The real turning point. Now my wife has been bugging me about it for a while. Like, and a few people have noticed I like to stir the pot. And I think it started in childhood, to be totally honest. And pointing out the truth is some people's biggest fear, to have the truth come out, or whatever that means, or an idea that they don't agree with, or a lifestyle that they don't agree with. And the real turning point was a coming out day this year, and I was like having a really shitty time at work and totally knew that someone was gonna fucking freak out at me about it. And so I came out as, you know, a straight golden male, cisgendered straight guy who is the oppressor. You know, that's the story right now, is that I personally am oppressing people through my lifestyle.
We are the evil.
We are
the evil.
Yeah, me and you, man. So how is your plotting and evil activities going right now?
Honestly, between going to jiu-jitsu and work and yard work, I really haven't been spending much time at my evil plotting board.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the felt is getting worn down and there's dust collecting on the paperwork, and some of the strings that I have drawn between push pins in the wall is starting to sag.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But
yeah. And okay, what ended up happening was someone who I considered my friend passively, aggressively, you know, let me know that me saying that was unacceptable. And this triggered a cascade of, you know, like he had a couple supporters and they went to town on me, and this did it in such a way that it was like, obviously I don't care about gay people or something is the argument. And I was kind of shocked. I have since spoken to him in person. He's very respectful in person kind of guy, very disrespectful on the internet. And then I actually lost a friend who I helped out recently, because somehow by taking part in coming out day, I was taking away floor space from other people. But what ended up happening is they gave me the floor. These people gave me the gift of being on the top of everyone's feet all day, because they just wanted to prove how much more virtuous they were than me by doing this thing. You know, you're not supposed to do that, and I'm the moral authority here, and you will fucking hear from me. I swear to God, you are a monster. And it's funny, anyway, no need to resort to any sort of like personal things about these people, but it just the activity of that, and it's continued into like political discourse, hopefully, maybe, between two competing ideologies that are apparently mutually exclusive for some reason, because of the beliefs of the other side or whatever, you know. And so I've been reaching out, trying to figure out common ground between these people that have been arguing with me in a more private setting, because the problem with things like Facebook is we end up letting the virtue signaling, I've just been loving that phrase lately, but signaling to other people online that we agree with what we perceive their beliefs to be, which we understand through social media, which is a bunch of people portraying what they believe other people think the right answer is based upon what other people think the right, and it just ends up in this weird echo chamber. But in real life, these people are great, and we have a few projects. So what I'm trying to figure is that people like this want to care about things that they say they care about, but don't know how. So they want to seem like, no, I want to be a person who stands up for people's rights, and I want to be a person who, you know, roots for the underdog, and I'm moral, and I'm just, you know, I'm a good person. But they have these maybe fears that they're actually racist themselves or something, and, you know, actually discriminate based on how people look, which is totally rational, because how else are you going to navigate the world? I mean, if I look at someone and I'm like, oh, they're kind of scary looking, you know, I probably behave a different way around them. And I mean, the whole biological sex argument makes no sense at all, because I can't believe there's an argument about it. And
what do you mean? Tell me, what do you mean by the biological sex argument?
It's apparently there are a group of people who believe that there is no such thing as biological sex differences of any kind, and that it's the social constructionism sort of argument that's quite popular in North American universities that states that, there is no relationship between a person's gender identity, which is a thing, we assume. It seems to be, experientially anyway. I feel there's manness or whatever, and that it's not related at all to the biological sex of the person. And so there's, yeah.
But that's not as, so, I mean, that's just choosing what you are expressing your gender as, right? Like, is that kind of what you're saying?
Sure. It's like nature versus nurture on a grand scale, and a group of people have chosen nurture. That's it. They just like are in nurture camp, and they're like, yes, we've chosen nurture. Everything's nurture, and it's yeah, it's strange.
So I guess I'm going to be ignorant about this because I am. And when they're saying something like there's no difference between sexes, like, is that just an expressive thing, or like does that include the fact that men typically have much greater upper body strength and can grow beards and typically grow taller and have more defined jaws and facial structures and hip bone structures and like thicker bones and the rest of those? Like, is that I don't know, are those things included in what they would consider to be an expressive part of it? Like, could somebody who possesses XX chromosomes nurture their way to a square jaw that can grow a beard and throw balls really far? I don't know.
Yeah, you could take a bunch of hormones, I presume. That might do something if you did it at the right part of the human development. I mean, if you gave them male hormones,
yeah,
you could, I suppose, nurture their body into, which is funny because you're just...
Uh-oh. Hang on. Something happened.
Hello.
Hey, I don't know what happened. Sorry, I didn't stop recording.
Wow.
You were saying someone can nurture...
Okay, I totally thought you cut me off because we entered forbidden territory. And,
not at all.
Look, when I get my camera back on here... Oh, how do I...
I see you.
Oh, you can see me, but I can't see myself. Okay, that's fine. You can see me, that's fine.
Now I can't see you.
Oh. How's that?
There, now I can see you.
Okay, so I thought you'd cut us off because I'd strayed into forbidden territory. I mean, you can't...
No. I love forbidden territory.
Okay, that is super sexy to hear someone say that. Who doesn't? But I don't know. The like transgender people right now are untouchable, I think, in terms of conversation. And so here we go. Yeah, you could take a bunch of hormones, which is ironic because the same people who are arguing there's no such thing as biological sex are using hormones of the opposite sex to achieve what? To achieve the changing from one sex to another because it more closely I assume because it more closely relates to how they feel on the inside, which I think is a very real thing. But I think the problem is that we don't have a proper sort of like the First Nations people have two-spirit as a sexual gender identity, and it seems to work really well for people that are more androgynous or masculine and feminine at the same time in the same body kind of thing. And yeah, that this seems like a beautiful way of expressing that particular aspect of being a person, which I think we all experience, at least sometimes, but some people probably experience more than others. Yeah.
For sure, there's got to be. I mean, for whatever reason, I guess you just get used to getting praised for expressing yourself in a certain way, and part of that for girls probably comes from every time they wore a dress when they were small, people told them they looked pretty, so they kept wearing dresses. So they kept wearing dresses, and and whatever, and maybe those kinds of things suit. It's like positive reinforcement for whatever you want somebody to do. So sure. That could result in these stereotypes and people not being able to express themselves. But now I feel like we're moving in such a way that if you don't feel like you can't properly come out and express yourself and like be whoever you want to be, then like the people that you're around that wouldn't be supportive of you, you just need to fucking get rid of those people.
Right. It's kind of tricky though. Like, if I throw on a dress and go to a job interview, chances of me getting hired are less than if I wore pants and a shirt. I mean, it's just like
I guess it depends on the job.
I guess, yeah, that's a good point. Some positions might look favorably on the other. But my point is that I heard recently from someone who is second or third hand information from someone who is from some other country, and they believe that you don't get dressed in the morning a certain way to express yourself and to feel good. You do it so that everyone around you is more comfortable. And I really thought that was great, you know, and I feel like that's something that's lacking on just the whole like right left spectrum of political, the people on the left, on the very far left, you know, don't care about when anyone feels or thinks about what they're doing. They want to be able to do, you know, what they think they should be able to do and fuck everybody else. Seems, I don't know, it's weird. And I think that now we can kind of come full circle here, or, you know, towards, I have notes here, as you know, but presumably someone else will listen to this. There, I think, is a stage in the psychedelic development of most people that I've seen in psychedelic communities, which I have been a part of for, I guess, 11 years or so. Having my first hit of LSD like 7 years ago, and then, I don't know, enjoying openness, high openness. People in psychedelic communities are always very open and compassionate, which is kind of double-edged sword. But one of the first things that people realize when they start expanding their understanding of reality in themselves is that they have an ability to kind of create their own environment. They sort of like create their own reality. That's a big thing, you know, manifestation and a lot of Jungian terms kind of like filter down into the into the psychedelic community. They love Jung for some reason, and we love Jung, I should say. And just things like those meaningful coincidences and synchronicity, I think he calls them. And people, if you stop during your development or your individuation, if you want to use a Jungian term for it, at this point, they're sort of people that come out are like megalomaniac, sort of messiah, people with the messiah complex that sort of think that they, you know, they have the epiphany. I create my own reality. I have such power. You know, it's like I think about this and it happens. Or, you know, green cars. Oh, green cars everywhere, kind of thing. And I think that socially and politically, that's the stage of development that the social constructionists are at. You know, we create our own reality, and that's it. There's no material, physical reality that has rules and laws that will stop me from being who and what I think I am, because all that matters is my perception of reality and my influence on it. And when you see it in an individual, it looks crazy. But when you see it in a group, it also kind of looks crazy if you really think about it, which is the problem I'm coming up with, is that some people literally can't think about what they're thinking about, their beliefs about reality. And they just like, if I say you offended me, it's like, well, I think you probably took that a little more personally than I meant it. So it's like the onus is on me to not be offended by the rude language because I don't agree with their philosophical ideology or moral.
I feel like a big part of where that comes from is because nobody ever taught me how to examine my own beliefs and to decide whether or not they fucking hold any water. And so I was raised Catholic, and my parents, you know, were raised Catholic, and their parents were raised Catholic. And there was just this like established set of these are the things offered by this religion, and you are now forced to be a part of it, and so you must accept these things. And I just got to a certain point in my life where I was like, fuck you, I don't want those things, and I don't want to have anything to do with where these things might take me or like might represent for me in my life, because they were just like unacceptable in my opinion. And that ranged everything from the mistreatment of women, typically in the Catholic Church, fucking kids. Like, I don't know why that doesn't get brought up as much as it should, but it fucking weirds me out, man. It really does. The fact that it was, once I really learned how widespread it was and how much of a long-term problem it's been in that organization, I don't know how people still give them money. I don't know how they do it. Because that money goes to protecting pedophiles.
Right. Well, probably a lot of money goes towards protecting pedophiles. More than any of us would be comfortable with. And that's probably some of the problems that people like, I don't know, people in the Islamic community might look, well, I don't know how they feel about pedophilia as a general rule, but I mean, some people in the world think we are monsters. And it's things like that that, you know, if our leaders, our religious and political and business leaders can be accused of things like that and aren't acting ethically, then I can't see any reason why people would think highly of us as a group.
Right. No, I totally agree with that.
There's some great symbolism in Catholicism, though.
It's true. Duncan Trussell says that you should eat marijuana and read the Bible, and it's like a beautiful kind of love-based story. Most of the New Testament stuff, like the Old Testament, has a lot of weird shit in it, but like the symbols of, like, let's say the story of the prodigal son is like a really beautiful story. Like, it's a really, really cool way of describing, you know, I guess trying to represent what forgiveness means and what acceptance in the community of the Church of Catholicism might represent. If you want to go and fuck off, you, like, the door's always open. I guess that's what they're saying. And that is kind of a nice thing, but there's also some really dark, deep, weird shit.
I believe it. You're probably right. Jordan Peterson talks about the story of Adam and Eve and the snake. And this is my Jordan Peterson plug. Natalie calls it the Jordan juice. You just like watch an hour of Jordan Peterson and feel vindicated in your amoral Nazi-driven beliefs or whatever people think that I just do or think. But he goes through like layers of analysis. You know, the fear of the snake in the Garden of Eden can be interpreted as fear of an actual snake, or fear of snakes generally, or fear of the snake in another person, or of that like evil, that psychotic destroyer that's in everyone, or and then finally like fear of the snake in oneself, the ultimate fear, and the snake then represents Satan. I just like the layers of analysis for each of those stories, the allegories. I think it's a great word for them. And there's something I think to that aspect of religion, and then symbolism. The actual like symbols that are used seem to carry some quite profound meaning, from my understanding. But does a person access God through the Catholic religion, and is that the function of the Catholic religion, to promote loving acceptance of the divine in your everyday life and how you treat people? I don't know. Is God in a church? I never saw him there, or her there, or it there. What's that? You know, except in the people, I guess, and in the, I don't know. If God's everywhere, why should I pay you to be my go-between between me and God, when I can have a personal relationship with the divine, which is, I think, more profound and more important for a human.
That's a really good perspective to just keep in mind, especially because I can get on like really anti-religious rants, and like I probably have an unfair chip on my shoulder when it comes to the people that are involved in those institutions, where I don't think it's the people going to that church every week that are saying like, oh, make sure this goes in the Protect the Pedophiles fund and they give their money to the Catholic Church. You know, like they're probably good fucking nice people just trying to live their lives and like just to see what they can do to make their communities better. So like, you know, the last time I guess that I really saw the reason or was able to relate to the comfort that some people get from that like organized structure was when I went back to see my grandpa when he was like moving out of his house. And so there was like a service that was dedicated to my grandma that died, and we were sitting in the church, and they've been in that community for years and years and years, and something about the average age in the church and the kind of atmosphere around everything that was happening. It was a service dedicated to my grandmother who's already passed away. It was like very somber and like serious, but I feel like I did actually get a sense of these people find some kind of comfort in the ritual. It's not the fact that it necessarily has to be that ritual or whatever, that just happens to be the one that they're the most comfortable with because of their upbringings. But like I kind of got a glimpse, I guess, into it and was like, all right, like, I'm never going to hassle those people about why they believe in God. I just think that there are some people that get caught up in the trappings of being on that team, and then they get lost in the details of the rules of the games that those competing religions play against each other. I think that causes more harm.
I think you're probably right. You're probably right about that.
I don't know. Where were we? We were talking about your Facebook stuff, and we got to like really deep religious conversation.
It's all related. I think these people, these social justice warriors, as is the term that describes the people with this particular ideology, style of conversation, and appearance also at times. It does seem sort of religious in a way, where it's, if you're not part of us, if you're not an ally, to use the terminology, then you are an enemy. And yeah, maybe that's how we got there. You had some mushroom chips, though.
The cat's out of the bag. Allegedly, I found or discovered some mushrooms, and yeah, they were
growing in the woods, of course.
Absolutely. I was hungry and camping and had no other means to survive, and
yeah.
See, it's fucked up that I don't even want to admit it. Like, that is okay, fine, whatever. I did mushrooms. It doesn't matter. It's not a big fucking deal.
It's not. And
like,
did you, I would honestly say, did you break the law? But yeah, you did. But did you hurt anyone?
No.
Are you going to hurt anyone? There is a risk. Okay, there is a risk every single time anyone does a psychedelic that they have the particular constellation of personality traits that will just freak out and go off the deep end and, break into someone's house by accident thinking it's their own house and make a grilled cheese sandwich or get violent or, never be okay. And so the regulation of psychedelics, I think, is important, but I don't think that someone like you should be prevented from using a psychedelic plant in a safe, respectful way. I think that is a big problem, and I think that comes from I don't know what, it's not even like, brother is watching, but it's more like mother is watching, and mother doesn't want you to hurt yourself, so you better not do anything. You better wear your fucking helmet, and you'd better not take any drugs.
Oh, my mom is actually going to listen to this. That's the fucked up part. So,
right.
Sorry.
Sorry, Mom. Well, and how old are you?
I just turned 30.
Right. 30 is great. 30 was my favorite year so far. I got really sick this last week, and I'm starting to get a little, flabbier, and that's not super great on the ego, but I'm slower and more patient and more calm, and I'm better at all the things I like being good at. So it's fun. It's fun. It's like the crux of experience and vitality is 30 to 650, hopefully.
That's what I tell myself. I feel really great. 30 feels awesome so far. Like, I agree with you. I feel super strong and like able to do whatever the fuck I want to do. But like, I'm definitely more patient when it comes to certain things. I mean, I fuck up constantly.
Yeah,
constantly.
Yeah.
But that's the way that goes. But anyway, my mushrooms.
Oh yeah, mom and mushrooms and being. Oh yeah, you're a healthy man, and if she wants to talk to you about it, that would be cool too. But yeah, tell me where. So you found some however you did that. But like, how much did you take? Where did you take them? And what? Then we'll start there, and we'll kind of get into.
Okay. So a friend of mine actually. I like the story of how I got them, because I was even nervous about. I did a lot of reading about mushrooms before I ever decided that I wanted to try them. And when I was in Orlando, I went and saw a comedy show by a guy named Shane Moss. And he's like a comedian, and he hosts a podcast about neurological research and talks to doctors and stuff. But he did a 1 hour stand-up show about psychedelics called A Good Trip. And I went to it with my wife and my cousin and his girlfriend when we were in Orlando. And like, everybody was sober. We had a couple drinks, but it was just like a really interesting way for somebody that had a lot of experience with psychedelics to like break the ice into the public who might not have any experience. There obviously were a lot of people there that had done DMT and ayahuasca and, you know, mushrooms, LSD, all those sorts of things. But hearing him have firsthand experience, be able to quote relevant science and then make it funny, like, changed the whole level of accessibility of psychedelics to my brain. Like, it just made it more like, oh, maybe this isn't such a dangerous, scary thing. So I was starting to like worry, you know, I worry about shit. And one of the things I worried about was like bad juju when it comes to getting these mushrooms. Like, I didn't want to go and find mushrooms from some guy that I had to walk down a dark alley and see somebody crying and like there's a stabbing going on over there, and just like have mushrooms with weird juju on them.
Yeah, that's legitimate concern.
And I've heard that, and so that was something that I was concerned about. But a friend of mine got them from somebody that grew them in their own basement, and I didn't even have to purchase them. I actually just like played guitar at his house for a little while one afternoon when he was like feeling sad, and I just sat down and played his guitar and like sang him like 3 or 4 songs. I stayed there for about half an hour or something, and then he just like offered them to me as payment, and it was just like a beautiful intersection of mushrooms into my life. Like, the universe wanted me to have those.
Yes,
at that moment. I really believe that.
Or God, if you.
Yeah.
Same thing. Same. It's the universe is the New Age's way of saying the word God, because they don't want to.
I guess so.
Anyway, so
I held on to them for a while because, like, just having them, I was really excited, and they're in my house, and I had to look at them and all that kind of stuff, and they're cool. But it turned out like I kind of wanted to have the experience as freely as I could, and so I actually did it when my wife was out of town for the weekend, and I just had the house to myself. And I think that was a good idea. And like, it's not as though I didn't tell my wife; she knew everything that was going on. But just for both of our sakes, for her not wanting to participate, we figured that was the best option. And so I made them into. I measured out exactly 3.0 grams and cooked them with Campbell's cream of mushroom soup. And after that, I just ate the bowl of soup, didn't taste the mushrooms at all. And I was nervous. I was really nervous. Like, when I brought out the can opener and opened the can of soup, my stomach was like, we're doing this. Okay. Like, it's like when you line up for a roller coaster, you know, and you line up for the roller coaster, and when you're first getting into line and there's only 3 or 4 people behind you, you're like, fuck this roller coaster. I can fucking bail out of this roller coaster anytime I want. But like, as you get closer and closer to the front, the pressure builds, and you're just like, okay, well, here we go. Like, okay, now they're putting us in the thing. Now the chair thing's coming over my head and it's clicking into place. Like, hold on, this is going to be fun. So that's kind of the excited expectation that I had for it. That evening, my neighbor plays in a band, and the band was rehearsing at his house, and he knew that I had planned to take them that night, and so he just invited me over to come and like have a beer and watch the guys rehearse. And I'd met them all before, all really nice guys, and they're really welcoming of me watching them play music. And it's in this guy's basement. A little bit of like set up for what that looked like. It's a very small, like older looking basement with like rafters from the roof visible, with like foam stuffed in between them for soundproofing, and like a really tight space with two or three guitar players, a bass player, and a drummer, and like everybody's playing loud, and they're a metal band, and like it was rocking. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, wow. I was gonna say that sounds awful. But
no, like their band is really cool. They're not like a heavy metal. I would say more like hard rock. Let's say that, like not metal. But anyway, as they started to kick in, I didn't smoke any pot before I took the mushrooms, or like for 2 or 3 hours before, and I didn't drink anything because I just wanted the mushrooms. I like just ate normal food and just took the mushrooms. And so I just noticed, like, sitting there, he has like rope light set up around his basement. It's super cheesy and awesome and reminds you of every 1990s grunge band garage space, with like multicolored changing rope lights. And the lights, instead of just like flickering on and off, they almost started to seem to like pulsate more, and being able to like feel the bass from the bass drum and the bass guitar and like the guitar riffs and stuff. I started to really get into like the longer jammy sessions of the music. Like I started to lose myself in a little bit, like kind of rocking back and forth, and all of a sudden I would like come back and be like, whoa, like the song would change or something would happen, or somebody would break a string or whatever, and it kind of just like, holy shit, okay, what are we doing? We're in the basement playing
trance. Yeah, trancing. That's good.
It was really cool. So a few of the guys from the band left after they played for about, I don't know, an hour and a half or so. I tried to play guitar afterwards. Could not.
Not happening. No.
No.
You have, and do you play guitar usually?
Yeah, I'm like decent.
Decent. How many years have you been playing?
Like 10 plus.
Oh yeah, you should have. Mushrooms can be funny. Mushrooms can like acid can be like, sometimes it'll be in the psychedelic state. You'll hit this relaxed perfection of your art, and other times you're just like a klutz. It just like it's a total flip of the coin, I think, sometimes. But I think you can do things to like prepare yourself to do, like, if you're like, okay, I'm gonna take mushrooms and play guitar, you like take your mushrooms and just like never set your guitar down, and you just play guitar for like 3 hours, and you'll come up with all kinds of creative shit.
I believe you. It felt like, because I wasn't expecting to play, I was just expecting to go there as a spectator. When like I relate it to playing guitar in a dream, but whenever you try to do anything in a dream, like that's complex or intricate, like whether it's tying your shoes or brushing your teeth, it's just like these simple things that you are so comfortable with in your normal life, and they just like turn into spaghetti in your hands. Like that's what it felt like. It felt like I'd never held a guitar before. It felt like it was broken and like a weird, just like
something wrong with this. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I just turned the volume off on it and listened to the other guys play, and that was really cool. So another part of this that was really neat. So that was about an hour and a half, 2 hours ish. And then after that, it was getting late, and I was pretty, like, the other guys were ready to start winding down. And so it was wintertime, and it was snowing really, really heavily. And I just walked over to my neighbor's house, and getting to walk home with like really heavy, really thick, really big flake snow, like hitting me in the face as I was running down the street back towards my house in the like total darkness. I live in like kind of a rural farming area, so it's just surrounded by like silent wintertime orchards, and it's just like every sound is just like crunch, 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 crunch as I'm running home, and like the snow it's like light speed in Star Wars, right?
Yes.
And after that, I came home. I thought that I would be hungrier, because normally I have a pretty big appetite, but it seemed to really kill my appetite. I planned out wanting to eat more. Like I had food ready beforehand,
fruit.
But I just like that's a good idea.
Fruit.
I was not interested in sandwiches.
What'd you say?
I was not interested in sandwiches.
No, they're too dry. I puke pretty much every time now. It's part of my like mushroom ritual. So I like to have a grapefruit before I start, and I just puke like exactly 1/2 of a grapefruit worth of vomit, and it's so pleasant. It's just like, bleh, and I scream puke. They call me scream puker.
That's funny. I didn't really get that nauseous. That was something that I was kind of expecting as well, just because of the only times I've been around people that do mushrooms were like, if you puke, it's not a big deal, but like, don't be surprised if you do.
Right.
But I didn't really get nauseous. We have a hot tub. I went and sat in the hot tub and like brought headphones and just listened to music while it was snowing. And that was really cool. I don't really know exactly how long I was in there for.
Right.
But I just like tried to meditate and hang out. And then I think I smoked a couple of joints because I just wanted to see, as I was like, I felt like I was sufficiently into the mushroom experience that I could start to introduce weed, because it was something that I'm pretty comfortable with outside of mushrooms. And I mean, fuck it. It's your first time. What can go wrong, right?
Yeah, okay. What did
Take
anything?
a chance,
Yeah.
Take a chance, Columbus did.
Yeah, yeah, it worked out for half of us pretty good, I guess.
It didn't really, it honestly just kind of like made me tired for the most part. Like it sounds really stereotypical person that doesn't like weed. And I don't often just get that response from smoking pot, but like I smoke pot and I kind of came inside, tried to talk into the microphone and record whatever was on my mind. But wasn't really happening. I like laid in bed and fell asleep listening to music. I don't know how long it took, but the whole thing that I was awake for, I think, was about 4.5 or 5 hours
So
of
I would
it.
have guessed. Yeah, that's normal.
So, but it was a lot of fun. I had a really good time. Like I laughed a lot while the guys were jamming. Anytime like a weird mistake guitar thing would happening while they were playing, like just a nerdy whatever, something that you can relate to as a guitar player, like I just loved every minute. I was so I felt really in the yeah. I was all about it at that moment in time.
You were
and then,
you were the jam space. Yeah.
That's a cool way to think about it, right? Because like everything in there is touching, when you think about the fact that we're always touching the air that's around us. Like it sounds so hippy dippy, but like I'm connected to this air that's, you know, the air is touching my skin that is connected to another molecule of air at infinitum to get to the dresser in front of me. And then that's touching the wall and the bed and everything else. Like it does start to break down. For me, it did a little bit, that boundary between like I am this and this is a microphone and this is a computer and this is a podcast, and like we were just music at that time.
Yeah.
Like, we were.
Oh yeah.
So that was my first time. The second time, I was at a Guns N' Roses concert in Vancouver.
Wow.
With like thousands of people, and a friend of mine had some other friends at the show, and they texted him and said, does anybody want to sprinkle of mushrooms for the show? And I said, fuck yeah. And he just showed up and like dropped a couple of stems in my hand, and I ate them. And I don't think it was nearly as much as I did the first time, but definitely made the concert feel really good. And like being there cheering along with thousands of people at a rockin' show was like really fun.
I feel if I do psychedelics at a concert, a big concert, I've done it at Tool twice. I did LSD at Tool once, and mushrooms at a Tool concert recently. And getting into and out of the arena is so uncomfortable that it almost overshadows the entire concert experience. And I mean, using the bathroom and just seeing how disgusting human beings are in a group like that, oh, it just made me sick. Just can't stop thinking about how gross we all are, and I just like don't want any part of this mass of disgusting, sweaty, drunken. It's like pick up my sweater and it's covered in beer. It's like, ew, you guys are gross. Like, quit it.
Yeah, I was lucky. The BC place where I went to see GNR was actually like, it's really well designed, and I didn't have any of those problems. The strangest thing is just having the security people there when you know that all they're trying to do is stop people from like smoking pot and, you know, doing whatever. It seems so weird to police people for smoking a joint when they're at a fucking concert. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it just made me feel uncomfortable to have somebody watching our section, and anytime anybody sat down and like sparked up, you could see they lit something, they would just walk over. If you didn't put it out, they called on their radio and 3 huge dudes in vests showed up and carried you away. Like it was fucking scary a little bit.
Yeah, they mostly were concerned about phones at our concert.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
I just wanted to ask, where did you do your research before you took your mushrooms?
So I mentioned that 1 hour comedy show with Shane Moss, and I don't know if that necessarily counts as research, but he did share a lot of information. I did some reading from the BBC, just trying to find out like baseline stuff, what the LD50 rates are for psychedelic mushrooms, what addiction rates are like for 0.
Okay, and and then what's the addiction rate for mushrooms?
It's anti-addictive in its properties and typically aids people in ending compulsive addictive behaviors. That's what I found.
Right, which kind of is a nice segue into my story. But
absolutely.
Erowid. I was going to mention Erowid. .org, I think. Erowid.org.
I have it pulled up here. I'll put a link.
Erowid.org. Yeah, always a a great resource with a lot of firsthand accounts of psychedelics, which I think is totally legitimate research, since you can't actually find any research on what it's like. Erowid is a great user-submitted sort of situation, and people write down all their dosage and what they felt, and still got to be careful. And I always recommend less first.
What do you think, before you get into it, what do you think of me doing 3 grams for the first time?
Oh, that's great. I think maybe you might have had too much noise and didn't have enough quiet. So next time you do it, I would recommend having like a little bit of just like introspective quiet time, which I always recommend on the mushrooms, because it gives you kind of a tool to see yourself and your behaviors and your actions, your plans for the future in a really new way, and allows you to make connections between things you might not necessarily think are related, or you can give yourself some pretty decent analysis. That's what I like to do anyway. You said meditating, so I assume you did that in the quiet. So 3 grams is a great dose. You didn't feel that like awkward. There's a weird, everyone has this dose range that's the awkward in between phase. So there's a low dose that's like sparkles and like, ha ha, I'm gonna play. And then there's like heavy dose where you just like can't play and just you contemplate the universe for like 3 hours and can't talk to anyone. And in between that is this like weird awkward phase where you like every once in a while you like close your eyes and see 1,000 unblinking eyes staring at you, and open them and they'll still be there, and then someone will say your name and you kind of snap back to reality. And it's like in between those 2 phases, and it's kind of uncomfortable because you can't quite let yourself go into the psychedelic space because there's some responsibility or something. And I think that setting it up so that you don't end up with any sort of like safety concerns or anything like that is important. I went for a river float, and every time I was just relaxing into like seeing all the eyes in the trees and just melting into the psychedelic feeling, and having my feet in the water and chilling, and at some a small set of rapids would come up or something, so I would have to like be aware and just like cut off that feeling. So I want to talk about set and setting as well. But yeah,
let's do it.
Okay, so well, make sure you don't have any safety concerns. That's a good one.
That was what I did. Don't worry, Julia. I fed all the animals. All the cats were inside. The horses were put away. I had no more responsibilities for the night. I promise.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not like first thing in the morning or something. I'm doing them now. Which is kind of fun too. And then like diet beforehand can have an impact on your experience with the mushrooms. Fruit, I already mentioned, are great. No, there's not really. Nicotinic acid is one way of possibly either like aborting the more negative effects of a psychedelic trip or aborting the trip itself, which has come out of the Hoffer and Osman research. But I have never tested it. I think it's vitamin B.
You made it sound like it came right out of a cigarette. Nicotinic acid sounds a lot like nicotine.
Yeah, and the two might be related. If you have schizophrenia, which would be like a bad psychedelic trip, would smoke. They have higher than normal smoking rates.
Wow.
Niacin is if you take a dose of niacin, it can abort a trip potentially. And then, so if you have some of that on hand, making sure the 3 knows of good drug use: know your source, know your dosage, know your substance. So doing some research beforehand. And then I always like to taste them. I like to really chew them and really connect with that disgusting bitter medicine taste and make a really gross face. And I always puke. Um,
You make that sound like the two aren't connected.
they totally. Oh, but I think that that's an important part of the process for me because by purging physically, I think I'm reading some Wilhelm Reich at the moment, and he connects bodily sensations with sort of like depth psychology through something called orgone therapy, which is about like releasing physical armoring that people develop to prevent themselves from being emotionally hurt. So like the gag reflex and gagging and puking would release it's a reverse of the peristalsis of the esophagus. So he argues that it has like like an emotional equivalent in the psyche in which you're purging emotion and purging blockages and things like that. So I consider it to be one of the most important parts of my psychedelic experience. And it usually signals the change from introspective nightmare, paranoia, feeling really awkward to kind of enjoying myself. So it's like I've puked out that relationship, that sort of like narcissistic paranoid delusion,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm
Okay.
which I'm prone to.
I think we all are. Like, isn't that kind of part of the point of getting into things that break down barriers between you and everything else is to take a fucking step away from thinking I'm the most goddamn important thing in the universe. I think that's part of what I get out of it.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. It's a good thing to get out of it. Yeah, that's the relationship to the divine. I think where you're like I'm the same as the tree, and we share some life energy, and I am my environment. That's why I love the sort of like First Nation in Canada specifically perspective on humanity and our relationship to our environments and things like respect and honoring ancestors and honoring nature and practice. I think we have a lot to learn from each other. I think we can teach them how to survive in this really kind of bizarre but ultimately quite effective system we have for governance and distributing wealth. At least it seems that way from where I'm sitting in this comfortable, warm house while it's snowing outside. And I think they have a lot to teach us about this sort of the practice and ritual that and and protocol that has evolved in a reciprocal relationship with this land over thousands of years. So I don't know how we got there, but that's my big sort of thing right now. I'm throwing a music festival in the summertime with a First Nation on First Nation land, and trying to develop a healthy relationship because I think it's important to me and to everyone. I think that if we are to move towards a unifying cultural perspective, I think that's the way to do it.
Wow, that's awesome. Tell me more about that music festival.
Oh, well, it takes place in the spring, in the solstice, and it evolved as a result of one festival sort of failing, um, um, and so a month before I was supposed to build a stage for this other festival, we were told it was canceled, and at the same time, my friend who's from L'Orange suggested going up to L'Orange and kind of sharing what he had learned in the city with the people from where he's from. And I realized how great of an idea it was. What we seem to share, what we seem to provide the reserves, especially the more isolated reserves, are the worst parts of our culture. Pop music, the sort of like gangster mentality serving as an alternative to healthy family dynamics. We provide drugs and alcohol, and the worst drugs, and absolutely no education about the drugs, but also physical health care. That's a great thing. And we also kind of, I don't know if provide is the right word, but offer or share. And I thought that this would be a way of sharing some of the beautiful aspects of at least a subculture anyway, and through the festival culture and through psychedelic culture, I myself overcame addiction and found meaning. I found meaning in my life and in my relationships with other people. So this is what I want to share, And it's been great. The welcome has been amazing. We had 150 people out, including artists, and I'm hoping and expecting that this year is going to be a bit bigger because people are really on board. You know, in spite of how much of a fool I may make myself out to be on the internet for the sake of pushing a conversation that I think is important, people still believe in what we're doing. So, yeah.
Do you want to talk about that? Like, you mentioned that you managed to use the psychedelic community and that sort of stuff to overcome things in your own life. Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. No, I'd love to talk about that. I love telling I'll try to just keep it short, maybe because it's, you know, my life from the time I'm 20 to now, which is, you know, 11 years ago now. And when I graduated high school, well, before I graduated high school, in 12th grade, I found something called a rave, which is an all-night dance party, which I think is one of the healthiest things that people can do, is get together on, if I want to get even more specific, on specific astrological and astronomical events, things like full moons and new moons and solstices and things like this, which is how I think human beings have evolved to organize themselves in terms of timing, because that's how our planet works. And if we are our environments, then why stop at your local forest? Why not stop at your planet, and how your planet interacts with the other planets, and how those planets interact with each other and the stars and the sun? So that's, and I love raving. I still rave. I'll go and I'll be sober. I'm an addictions counselor, and I go to raves, and I sit there and I talk to people, and you know, I keep an eye on people. Oh, that guy's really high. Oh, it looks like there's a lot of cocaine here tonight. Oh, this, oh, that. And like, you know, make sure that people aren't sexually harassing each other as best I can, and like go and be a 31-year-old man at a rave who's not a total creep trying to sell people drugs. So I went to a rave in 2004 and tried ecstasy, and I tried a half a pill of ecstasy, and it was fucking awesome. I had a great time. And I met a girl, and we just like, I didn't even dance at the first rave I went to. I just like hung out with this one girl, and we rubbed each other's hands and like made out a little bit. And I was so in love, and just like, it was such a warm connection to another human being. And it's something I'd never really felt, because I was kind of short and kind of chubby and wore goofy clothes, and my family didn't have any money, and just like, you know, bought fucking like superstore brand clothes or whatever. And just like, I wasn't cool. I was not cool at all. Girls just fucking hated me. I was a liar, a new kid in school, just trying to like, I don't know. I heard my motto from my dad was like, if you can't, fuck, I forgot it. That's probably for the best. If you can't wow them with skill, flatter them with bullshit or something like that. I really took that to heart in high school, and people didn't like me for it. Keep going to raves, start dancing, meet a couple raver friends, feel the acceptance and warmth of a community of peers for the first time in my life. But also found drugs, and then one of these friends invited me out to his house for a hot tub party, which never happened. And he's like, oh, you want some speed? And I'm like, oh, wow, that sounds great. And my drug education in school was lacking, and I had no idea that speed was crystal meth. I didn't know those two things were the same, or how really fucking dangerous that drug is. I mean, it is fucking dangerous. It's like, and I was, you know, the caveat to this story is that when in like 5th, 6th grade, I was introduced, 6th grade probably, I was introduced to methylphenidate, which is the chemical name for Ritalin, which is a great speed. Like, oh, it's like fucking really like nice, clean pharmaceutical speed that comes out of the lab. And dextroamphetamine, same sort of thing. Adderall, they're amphetamines or methylphenidate, and they're fucking great speed. Anyway, so I'm kind of like a little more, maybe more prone to. And the reason they gave me it is because I have a sort of, I need a lot of stimulation. And so if you give someone who needs a lot of stimulation a stimulant, then they'll be stoked. And so, well, and they'll be relaxed, and it'll be easier to teach a class. Like, I totally understand why. I took some of that methylphenidate when I was a bit older, when I was in university, and I'll tell you, I'd never get so much stuff done, and just love reading. Just read for fucking 5 hours straight, and just like, obsess over there. Like, a great drug. Great drug. Anyway, crystal meth, not such a great drug. So this guy gives me this shit, and I fucking snort it, And then like an hour later, he's like, "Oh, we're out. We have to go to our dealer." And he like walks me up this mountainside, and I had to go like borrow speed from this guy, and that begins like a 2 year um, like relationship with crystal meth, where I like end up like spiraling down and like living in this really sketchy area of town and in a basement that's like flooded, while my roommate like grows weed plants, and I'm like actually losing my mind. And I start to get, this is the emergence of the paranoia zone. um, I thought it started off thinking that my friends were just trying to trick me, and that my girlfriend at the time wasn't really my girlfriend, and just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And then I remember the last like really intense paranoid delusion, like full blown paranoid delusion, where I was hallucinating and feeling things and seeing things. I was like walking down the street, and like curtains would open, and I would see the barrel of a gun and hear the gunshot, and then feel the bullet enter my body and feel the blood like running down my thing, because I thought people were hunting me, and I couldn't figure out who it was or why it was. But at the time I was like stealing from my work and like wasn't paying rent, and just like all these people I thought were my friends were probably just using me for my house and my drugs, and it's like doing other totally immoral, unethical shit with young women also, which I'm not terribly proud of. And ended up trying to like drive out of town, and then thought people had sabotaged my vehicle, and so I was like tearing my vehicle apart, and I was gonna go see my dad, and I changed my mind. And eventually, like, I guess I called my grandparents in one of those moments, or like the next day or something, and they, you know, heard what I was saying and how I sounded, and I probably weighed about 50 or 60 pounds less than I do now, because I would like eat pierogies every 3 days or something, and just fucking be a junkie the rest of the time. And I ended up moving back into my mom's house, where I okay, so but during this time period, I did go to my first music festival, and it was Motion Notion, and I went with some friends, and I dropped acid for the first time in the van ride out there, while this guy drove like 160 kilometers per hour. So talk about set and setting, worst set and setting you could possibly imagine. But then go into the mall, and I'm feeling kind of goofy because I've seen Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and I'm kind of feeling like that or whatever. And get to the music festival, drop some heavy acid, and like do some speed probably, and just like walk around, be an asshole. And I didn't really like connect with the festival experience of like, you know, treating other people like people, and learning something from people, making new friends. I just wanted to, I don't know, just danced and did my thing, and it was great. And then had to drive afterwards, but that's sort of irrelevant. I think I also made it to Shambhala one of those years. Oh yeah, I made it to Shambhala 2 of those years, and I was still using meth. And I remember one Shambhala in the lineup, I did like I just met my friends there, and I guess this would have been after I moved away, and then like first thing I did was do like a huge fat line of speed. And by the time we get to the front of the line, I'm like in my underwear, just like being so crazy and just talking to people, and they're like, "Oh, this guy's obviously super high."
Did you always snort it?
No, I smoked it for a while as well.
Crazy.
I'll never forget that. Yo, totally crazy. It's just like,
sorry, I don't mean to like.
No, man,
that's something that I don't know. So it blows my fucking mind.
Man, there are teenagers that know. There are kids that know, and that's fucking what's really fucked up. And like, I was, you know, however much you can say like a 20-year-old man is an adult, I was still mostly you're a fucking
baby.
Idiot. Oh, you're an idiot at 20. Just like, I hope I say that when I'm 40, but when I was 20, I was a fucking idiot. And just, this is proof, right? So I just like, I don't know how many times I tried to kick it. My dad found out at one point and like dragged me out to his house and didn't let me talk to any of my friends, but like would give me $10 at lunch for lunch, and I was supposed to go buy lunch, but fuck that. I'm gonna go buy a point of speed and fucking rail my point of speed and then go home and stay up all night. I did that every day, right? Until he finally caught me. And, you know, I did meet with addictions counselors in Prince George, which is where this was happening, which has a pretty intense meth problem. It used to, anyway. And I know that a lot of really small communities that the education is lacking have very serious meth and gang problems, including Prince George. And this man couldn't describe what crystal meth looked like. And I just remember thinking that I had no respect for this man, because he's supposed to teach me about drugs, and I had to teach him about drugs. He just didn't know what he's talking about. And then, yeah, so I moved back. I go back to Shams and, like, use speed a couple times. But then, like, I fucking use speed on the first day of a festival and then, like, feel like shit. Like, dance at the drum circle until my legs start cramping and feel like shit for, like, fucking 12, 16 hours and have my friends be like, yo, you're still under the influence of that shit. Just like, stop trying to say like you're over it or whatever. And just had a few great conversations with friends who I haven't seen in a long time, actually, that particular one. And then continued to try to dry myself out with the help of my mother and my sisters and my stepdad. And probably was like the most annoying person on the planet to deal with, I imagine. Probably extremely rude. And did end up finding more speed in university because there's an epidemic of amphetamine and methylphenidate abuse and addiction in our universities. And it's how people pass classes. It's how people get through medical school. And it's very sad. And it is a very, very severe problem because these people will be addicted to these drugs their entire lives. Or they have to go through very, very intense withdrawals. And it's people that, you know, would tell me, oh, all you have to do is go to your doctor and say this, this, and this, and they'll give you this drug. And yeah, so still continued using that a bit. But there was something that happened during one of my psychedelic experiences. So we'll get into those stories. The first one was the first time that my reality like broke down. And I had taken LSD at Shambhala Music Festival, which is a massive music festival, and wandered around back when it was the Labyrinth stage, maybe even the Portal stage. But this stage has gone through like all the stages stay consistent except this one stage that's slowly moved from being like the most psychedelic place at Shambhala to like less and less that. Shambhala now I think is more about the like big room vibe and like trap music, and which I love. Like I fucking love bass music, but there's something to like that place. Like when you're really tripping, you go to the back of the Labyrinth stage and like you just fucking sit there. And I don't know how many times I've just like spent entire nights of Shambhala just like sitting by myself in the back of the stage, just like random people filtering by and having like meaningful conversations and shit. But this one time they used to have this like Mayan calendar and this really crazy book and all these like crazy crystals all set up back there. But first, I go back there, and there's like another little mini stage back there, like one of those geodesic domes people build. And inside this thing is one of the coolest pieces of technology I've ever seen, and have never seen it again. I've asked a few people about it. They're like, oh yeah, that was this thing. And I don't know if I like imagine this piece of technology or if it actually exists in the form that I remember it. So somewhere probably in the middle of those two things. What I remember was like a projector screen, and then a projector which was projecting a fractal pattern onto the screen, and then anything that moved in front of the fractal pattern would activate samples or something, and you could make music by dancing into it.
I'm gonna Google it. Fractal pattern projector.
Oh yeah, man, I've tried to Google it a few times, but
let's see here. Gobos and Gobos projectors, Fractal 2.
Fractal music rhythms, fractals in art and music. Anyway, so you dance in front of this thing. Oh, I can wait. Is she talking to you?
No. We're all good.
You have someone in there.
I don't actually. I've got two screens going. I've got this one, and then I've got one off to my side here that like has the recording stuff, and then like another window so I can look shit up if I need to. Or whatever.
It activated my he's not paying attention to me subroutine.
No, I promise. There's nobody else here. There's only cats that you saw earlier. So there's this screen
cat
right here, and then there's one to my left that just has like the internet and has like a couple webs. Like I have Arrowhead pulled up on there, and that UBC thing I want to talk about later. But back to your story. So you were there, and you were in this.
So this
dome.
thing, yeah, it's a geodesic dome that's covered, and like all the people that are really tripping out are chilling around this thing. And I love dancing by this point. Dancing is the one thing I pulled out of my addiction that I keep doing and keeps me healthy, and I love it. I love it. I think I've already said what I think, but like moving around with other people is the healthiest thing people can do with each other, I think, period. And so by this point, I've been like practicing my like rave dancing, which sounds totally cheesy, but has now developed into a legitimate art form of like popping, animation, tutting, and waving and stuff. And so someone's just like, and I'm tripping, dude, like stumbling through the forest tripping, and someone's just like, give it a try, maestro. And that's the only introduction I get, because I've like kind of pieced it together. I'm like sitting there watching and I'm getting pretty amped about it. I think I might be on the dance floor near this thing, but if it only works if you stand in one particular spot. And I've made the connection between this person's dancing and the music that I'm hearing. I'm like, that person's somehow creating this music with their dancing. And so they're like, give it a try, maestro. So I like jump in this thing, and it's like, it's not like it's like being in front of a projector. And I just like rocked out and just like made music with dancing. And it broke something in me. It reversed what usually is the case. And so, and I could get like glimpses of it still on the dance floor when I'm like really connected with the music and like break down that sense of like what happens before and what happens after. And it was so fun and so creative and expressive. And then I'm feeling charged up by this. So I'm feeling like this is I can create my own reality moment. Oh, I'm creating my own reality. Cool. So I just like tuck that away for later. That was a really neat experience. Don't let it go too crazy to my head. Like, oh, I'm God, or, whatever. And so I sit down, I go to leave because the attention has become a little bit too much for me to bear, and I just kind of want to sneak away. And so I sneak away and like sit by this weird altar with like all these crystals and this weird mind grid, and pick up this book and start reading this book. And the language is so complex that I'm tripping hard on acid, and I read it and I can't comprehend it, and I just like I'm reading the same line again. But I notice out of the corner of my eye while I'm reading, this table has become populated by people. So there's like all these people like investigating all the crystals and like looking at the board. And then like I look up from the book and look at one of them, and they all start looking at each other and then wander off. And like, that was weird, but okay. And I like go back down, start reading this book again, like really intently. And again, it fills up. And there's people investigating all the things, and like look, and then I like look up at them, and they all look at each other and start feeling self-conscious again and leave. And I'm like, oh wow, the power of human attention is that. I'm just like, all of a sudden it clicked. Wow, the power of human attention. Like, that's so beautiful. It's so amazing. And through experiences like this, experiences like feeling intensely connected and like intensely like a powerful unit in the universe among other powerful units, that's the next step. I create my own reality as the first step, and so does everyone else is the next step. We're all Godhead, or however we want to describe it. And it was through psychedelic experiences like that, through my MDMA experiences and connecting with other people in a heart-based way, which I can't do high-dose MDMA anymore, especially in public. It just like, I just feel too foolish, like pie-eyed and just like, oh, blah, 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 blah. It's just like, I can't do it, man. But like, which is fun. I have a job to do, right? So I'm like, I can't publish this on my personal Facebook. I might anyway. Like, damned be to anyone who would fire me for. But it's like a risk. It's a social risk. And then
for sure, there's definitely people that I'm friends with that are going to be like, I don't know about this guy.
Yeah, and
like
that's,
as far as me, I mean, like just saying that I've tried mushrooms. I know
right.
for sure there's gonna be people that are like, I didn't think Eric was like that. Eric was such a nice boy growing up. I wouldn't think he would do such things.
Right, and I'm trying to explain that I became a better person through using psychedelics, through like in my own relationship to myself, in my relationship to other people, the universe, God. Like, I mean, all these ideas and concepts came to me because of, I already probably was a little predisposed to it, but like, I don't know, the first time, I remember I did LSD at this Bass Coast Music Festival, and this quite androgynous person, who was a woman, I think, who would not be offended by me saying that, was like, oh, do you want to piggyback? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And I like go to jump on this girl's back, and I'm like, 180-pound guy, and she just like kind of crumbles. She's like, no, you have to go slow. I'm like, okay. She like like slowly like, oh yeah, I just like jumped on her, dude. Like, I was right on your funny bone. You can picture it. That's why I turned into a little kid for a second. When do you think the last time someone offered to give me a piggyback was probably like fucking 15 years before that, 20 years before that, when I could have done that, right? And
man, you want to know one of the saddest things I ever heard, and I shouldn't almost say it, but there was one day where your parents never picked you up again.
I know.
Like, that is so sad.
I know. Oh, I'd probably, yeah, that's super sad. Or like, fucker. Okay,
I know, right?
So this girl takes me to this like tent, which sounds creepy and weird, but it's like almost like a sweat lodge style building that someone had made, And in this thing where are a couple benches where you can hang out in this like weird forest path. But then she like sits me down, and I like look away from her and look towards this altar that had been created with a whale skull at the center of it, with all these beautiful like orbs of crystal and like huge crystal, like someone had like a fortune in crystals, I swear, and these intricately carved antlers. And I sat there meditating with my eyes open for an extended period of time, and I learned that you actually don't need to blink. You just like can hold your eyes open. Eventually your eyes will just like sort it out. They just like get liquidy kind of. And through this, I just became so entranced with this thing. I was like investigating. I still have it like burned into my memory because I sat there for so fucking long and just stared at this thing and investigated each tiny detail with my mind without moving. And just experiences like that where you're just like connected to death in such a meaningful way. And this sort of like shamanic depth of the psychedelic experience to connect us to things we wouldn't otherwise understand is amazing. This time at a Saskatchewan local music festival that used to happen, the sketchiest music festival I have ever been to, because it's on like some bikers.
You put some attitude into that. You like shook your head. Ever been to? I know people probably won't be able to see that because they're just listening, but I want you to know how much emphasis he put on that.
A lot. Because it took place on like, I don't know if they're like HA or whatever, like biker territory, like on a biker's property. And these are like big leather vest wearing kind of guys that are big on respect. And I love that. Respect is big for me too. If someone, I'm not going to disrespect most people most of the time. Unless someone does something absolutely atrocious to me, I usually treat them with at least a minimal level of respect, regardless of how they present themselves to me, until they've broken that respect. And then, so I'm breaking all the rules. I'm in this like really weird environment. I'm just eating hamburgers the day before. Just like brought nothing but hamburgers to eat. I'm like kind of tripping on like a half a dose of acid, and I had in my possession something called, I can't remember if it's like Foxy or Moxie. Either Foxy or Moxie. I'm just going to do a quick. So Moxie is 5-MeO MIPT, and Foxy Methoxy is 5-MeO DIPT. I'm pretty sure it was Foxy, the 5-MeO DIPT, which is a psychedelic tryptamine in the same family as dimethyltryptamine, DMT, the active ingredient in ayahuasca. And this is a powerful psychedelic. This is a research chemical, and I'm like tripping, like hanging out with my bro, and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna take this. But I just like pop this full pill, never checked how much it is, just like pop it in my mouth, and like an hour later, I am fucked. I am.
Welcome to the jungle.
Oh yeah, no, that is the perfect phrase, man. I could step on the dance floor at one point, and somehow I get it in my head that they only threw this party to get me out of the house so that someone could fuck my girlfriend. That's the entry. That's the entry into the insanity. And I'm like, because this party sucks at some points, and I'm like, I'm not having fun. Why am I here? I could be at home with my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and instead I'm at this fucking.
Congratulations, by the way.
Oh man, it's awesome. And yeah, monogamy, challenging, fucking awesome. Sublimation. Anyway, we can talk about sublimation later. I got it in my mind that was what was happening. I was like, you know what? If that's what's happening, fuck it. I'm gonna have the nicest. I'm just gonna like have so much fun tonight. Then I'm just gonna dance, and I start dancing, and like I can feel the like web of the dance floor. Like as soon as I touch the dance floor, I can feel the like vibes change, and it's like I've stepped onto water. And I've had that experience a few times where you're like, you don't want to send too many ripples, you know, you don't want to make other people uncomfortable by like showing off all your sickest moves or whatever, right? And my buddy played this No Rock Stars track, and it just like perfectly encapsulated that idea. But then I move on to the other dance floor, and I'm convinced that like someone brought like my all-time favorite DJ and like dance floor music, and I'm just like going off, man. I'm just like so amped, and just like there's so much energy coursing through my body, and I have to dance it out. And it's just like, so, and then the next artist comes on, and it's this like crazy psychedelic shit, and it's a woman, and I can't figure out who this woman is, because I'm in this state. By this point, I've been like walking around the party, and like, you know, I'm like, hey dad, like, what's up, man? And like, think I hear my grandpa and my dad. Like the entire contents of my unconscious mind has now like moved into all the people I know are just like here, and there's not even that many people here, and I'm just like yelling, and then I see some girl throw a cigarette butt on the ground. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? You can't just like litter. And I just like grab a cigarette butt, look her in the eye, and she's like, don't do it. And I slowly chewed and ate a cigarette butt in front of her, and then like puked it up and spat it on the dance floor. I'm like, if you ever throw another cigarette butt on the ground again. And I don't know if she did. It was like, just, I was so fucking like, but I knew I could kind of let loose a little because there's these big guys there that if I really get out of line, I'm going to get put down. So I'm like, okay, I can kind of like, I kind of feel safe because of it, because I know that there's boundaries that someone will make sure that I'm not crossing. So I like go on stage at one point because I helped set up the stage, and I'm like, I fucking built the stage. Like, I'm gonna walk on stage. I'm like, don't worry, it's cool. And it's like walk on stage, take a shot of whiskey, and I'm like, this is poison. And, like, hand it back to my buddy, and I go like crush out push-ups on the dance floor. And like I've created, and I'm the only person dancing. I mean, it's a group of people that are just like hanging around the fire, and I just like did push-ups until I couldn't do push-ups, and then just like dropped to my knees and just like kept crushing to like make penance for the alcohol I drank. And that's when I came up with the rule.
That's very Catholic of you, by the way.
Yeah, I should have been like whipping myself or something.
Self-flagellating. Yeah,
yeah, that's it. Which is a good practice, I think. To be totally honest, I think it's like actually like one of the most legitimate things you can do if you really feel like you deserve punishment. Now that's fucking take it into your own hands. And so I've created a scene, and my buddy is like, there's a few of my friends there. One of them's like, he's fine, and one of them's like really worried about me. And my other friend's like, he's fine, and like barely recognize anyone at the party. Just like they're all people I've known for years, and just like can't fucking recognize them at all. It's like, I have no idea what's going on around me. And then there's like, this is a weird part. So I think the woman that's DJing, first I think it's my mom, then I think it's this woman I loved in Prince George, and I think it's my wife now, and like all these women, I just feel this overwhelming sense of love for her. And I go up and I'm like, is it really you? She's like, yeah. I'm like, can I touch you? She's like, no. I'm like, okay. It's just like clear boundary. And then, like, there's, like, for some reason, a paper towel roll, you know, the, like, wooden ones with the... And I got it in my head, like, that everyone wanted me to fuck myself with this thing, like, really... Which is really bizarre, right? And, like, if I did that, I was so glad I didn't do that. I would just died of embarrassment, probably.
Or blood loss.
Or blood loss, yeah. And then my buddy comes to give me a drink of water, and I'm still a bit paranoid by this point, and everyone's staring at me because I've just been creating such a scene. It's like life of the party doesn't quite do it justice because I've lost my motherfucking mind. And so he comes to bring me a drink of water, and I think that everyone has come in this water bottle. And I'm looking around because he brings it to me on the dance floor, and I'm the only one at the dance floor. Everyone's kind of standing at the back just watching this fucking bizarre show. And I make eye contact with everyone there. They're all staring at me. And so this fuels my paranoia. Like, oh, of course they're just waiting to see if I'll drink it. And I just like stare at the water bottle, and I like look up at all these people, and they're still staring at me like, what the fuck's he doing? Is he gonna drink it? And it's like, okay, I guess I'll drink it. And like, I mean, I like got in my head, I'm like, oh, I guess you gotta trust somebody. And I just like looked at this guy who ended up leaving and betraying my trust in a way that sucks. But I like, it sucks for me, and he was just living his life. So I have a drink of this water. It tastes like regular old water, whatever. And then I got it in my head that I'm the sacrifice for this party, and they're actually literally gonna kill me. And so I'm like, okay, here we go. And I like fucking lay on my back and close my eyes, and I'm immediately transported to this jungle, which is why I thought it was funny, because you're like, welcome to the jungle. And this like on the top of a pyramid on this like weird dais, I think is the word, of like sacrifice, where the blood would probably run down some channel and fucking activate some crazy glyph or something. And I know that I'm the sacrifice, and I'm like so scared to die, but so proud of like what I'm doing for the community. And I know that this person's coming. And then I open my eyes, and the same thing's happening. I know that someone's coming to kill me, and I'm feeling, I know in my being that I'm about to die. It's like so all-encompassing. It's what is happening to me through my experience of this thing. And I feel terror, and finally, just before it happens, I feel this sense of like, oh, like I'm gonna die, and that's what's gonna happen. And then all of a sudden, I feel the knife in my throat, and then I immediately am going through the birth canal. And then I hear this screaming sound in real life, and it's me screaming like a newborn infant. So I made this exact sound of like a crying baby using my man lungs, which is totally possible for everyone. And then I ended up like my friend like held me like he was my mother, and then I asked him to kiss him actually, and like made out with his friend, which was not very. I don't like the feel of facial hair against my lips. I didn't like that very much, so cross that off my list, I guess a bit. But
no bears for you.
No bears for me. The just before that happened, I realized I was about to die. I like closed my eyes and laid down, and then in the sort of like psychedelic reality, which is one of the ways I just kind of described the space of like pure consciousness that you can access through your own consciousness. I sit up and I can observe this interconnected network that represents all of the people and their connections. And I'm like, oh my God, what is it? Like, is it technological? Is it spiritual? Like, how do I describe this when I'm trying to conceptualize what I'm experiencing? This web of energy that connects all things. And this shepherd comes by, and it's the word I like to use because they were just like making sure that everything's working right with all the, the network of energy. And he says, it doesn't matter. Just sit. Does it matter? I'm like, no, it doesn't matter. That's a good point. It's like, just, you got to sit down though. It doesn't work if there's a hole in the net kind of thing. And I just realized that was one of the many times that I realized that all humans and all living creatures are connected. And then I had this idea that maybe through like reincarnation, people were sacrificed to fulfill that role in a community, because it seems that we, whether metaphorically or otherwise, need to sacrifice a human being, to whether it's like they have to bear themselves in some way in order for it to be like a good gathering kind of thing. But yeah, my now wife said that was the day that I had changed, and I literally, like, I didn't literally die, but to me, I died. I dealt with the fact that I am going to die in a real proxemic sort of way, and and now there was one other trip story in which I'm just reminded of it.
When's the last time you did crystal meth?
I don't know. Years ago.
I guess that's the perfect answer, right? Because they say the opposite of love isn't hate. It's like not giving a fuck. It's just ignoring. I forget what the exact word is. My brain farted for a second, but it's like just whatever. I don't fucking care.
Well, the funny thing is I now work with people that suffer from meth addictions, among other addictions. I work in a treatment center. That sort of information is public. And I work with teenage girls from First Nations communities who suffer from all sorts of addictions and traumatic sort of experiences in their lives, and they're learning to be healthy people, I guess, is what I should say about that. And so crystal meth and addiction has never left my life, but I learned something somewhere, and because of that, I can, I also did a bachelor's in psychology and have tried every drug on the planet and been addicted to drugs and been homeless and sit as best I can in a position of, helping, judging when necessary. I think I think judgment is fine when people are doing things that are bad for them. You can judge. You can say that's bad for me. That's a judgment. I shouldn't do that. That's a judgment. Also, I think that's fine. But yeah, just like the full circle of addiction to addiction, but on the other side of the page, I think is and I don't know why I give psychedelics so much credit.
Well, it sounds like it kind of, this is my completely uneducated, inexperienced view on it, but it almost allowed, I think, maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, did it almost like show you that if you continue down the road of whatever crystal meth was going to lead you to, that reality of you are going to die is going to come true way sooner than it would have otherwise. Like, did that factor into it at all?
No, man. It was just more like I found better ways of getting what I needed, I think. And so what meth, I think, was providing for me was a community of people, recreation, because I didn't know how to entertain myself. I was entertained by a television most of my life, I think, probably, as most of us were, which is sad. So I had to find new ways of entertaining myself, new ways of connecting with people, new ways of dealing with feelings that I had. And I think that, and a new story for myself, you know, because I think that one of the problems that all of us have is that we get stuck in our story. I'm the bad kid. And so any problems that are going on around me are kind of my fault. And if you're mad at me, you're probably right. And that's not a helpful story for a young man to deal with. And then to, you know, start university and learn that I'm also a racist and a bigot and dangerous, and I'm responsible for colonialism. And what I think I know about myself is just what my culture's been telling me. It's, you know, I found, I remember the trip I was going to explain. So I was at Motion Notion. Actually, the first festival I went to was Astral Harvest, which is in a similar sort of spot in Canada. That's why. No, it was Motion Notion. And so my wife and I went to Motion Notion, and it rained a lot. And we were feeling like, we're too old for raving. We're boring, you know. Oh, God. She was however she was. I was however I was. It rained a lot. But I just kept taking like little bits of mushrooms. Just like eventually I kind of felt like a mushroom living in a misty mountain, you know? Like, oh, this is great. I am this misty mountain. Got it. And at one point, I'm just starting to panic about all the people everywhere. I took a larger than little nibble dose, and I had to escape. And I started feeling like a trapped animal, because every time I tried to escape, this like ended up in a really like more people everywhere I looked, you know. And I just really had to pee, and I'm like, I need to get back to camp. And places that were used to be quiet are all of a sudden really busy now that it's nighttime, and I'm lost, and oh shit. And at one point, I'm walking down the path, and some woman comes up to me with a picture of who's that guy from Baywatch, original Baywatch?
David Hasselhoff.
Yeah, she comes up to me with a wallet-sized picture of David Hasselhoff, and she's like, "Have you seen my brother?" And just like, I'm like, "What?" No, I don't actually say anything at all. I just look at the picture, and in my mind, I'm like, "That's David fucking Hasselhoff." And I look at her, and I look at the picture, and I look at her, and she's like, "Have you seen my brother?" And I look at her, and she's like, "You're not even gonna say anything, are you?" And I just shook my head no and walked away. It was like, maybe it was like a pickup line or something. Like that's one of the things in the festival community is it's one of their like signals. Like, I have a sense of humor. They're like, their pickup line is a joke, and then you realize, oh, it's the same joke for everyone, and they're just like trolling that joke. But I get back to camp, and I'm like feeling kind of slow and lazy, and did some like crazy breath work, and I had to pee so bad, and I couldn't figure out the ethical place to pee. This is the point of the story. And so finally I'm like, turn to the heavens above, and I say, "Great Spirit." And as soon as the words left my mouth, like, Brandon, you're asking, like, it dawned on me how much of like a cosmic joke humanity is, that we think that there is some answer for all of our tiny little like meaningless fucking stupid question prayers, and which is, you know, just like all I got was laughter in return. And I just like, that's a good point. So I like go pee, and like,
that's when it's really important. Like, was the laughter around you from people that were laughing at you by asking the Great Spirit where you needed to pee, or was the laughter like something that just you created in your brain?
Well, there was a whole by this point I've got back to my camp, and I'm basically alone. And I just like, eventually the laughter was me laughing like a crazy person in the woods, on my like maniacal laughter at like how ridiculous I personally am in the face of like the divine, being like, "Excuse me, where do you think I should take a pee?" Like, I have, you know, it just like,
that was why I asked, because sometimes it's just really good to also have people around you that when you're tripping balls and in another dimension, they'll look at you and they'll just be like, "Just go pee, stupid. Stop asking the universe what it means." And every once in a while you need that, right? Like the little smack on the back of the head, like, "Oh yeah, right, I can just go pee."
Yeah, that's what I learned from that. But also, that was one of the times there was a fellow who was selling like mushroom cookies. And the plan was to all of us get together at like 11 p.m. before Infected Mushroom went on. And we're all going to dose at the same time. And I heard other people's thoughts, period. I I felt other people's feelings and it's the second time that's happened where like a group of people under the influence of the same psychedelic dancing to the same music, so their bodies are moving literally in the same rhythm with the same, so you're already kind of on the same wavelength. I've tapped into the kind of like greater consciousness sphere that encompasses us all, and then like felt things that had happened on the land also, which was a wild experience. And it's tough to wanna smoke meth when you can feel that sort of like greatness that we're all a part of and all creating together. And by like doing something like smoking meth, it was more like, it's like, as much as you're like getting something done like a fucking automaton, there's no spark. There's no, like, I can be really technically really, it's fine in detail, but there's that thing that makes humans, you know, it's like the difference between a Vulcan and a human, like the Vulcan, or like you can, or an angel and a human. You can't have a truly ethical angel because they have no choice. And it's like that same sort of thing, that like infusion of soul into something is gone when you're high on crystal meth. So it wasn't like a conscious choice. It wasn't like, you know, I hit rock bottom, now I have to make sure that I'm doing better. But I totally did hit rock bottom, and then and like through my actions in rock bottom found like a better way of being a person. And I think that psychedelics helped me with that.
That's really, really cool. It's wild, and it's really great that those kinds of places exist, where, you know, even though it was something unscripted and that you didn't necessarily plan to go that way, like you had the opportunity to, at this music festival, delve deeper into the depths of your consciousness and really like discover something about yourself that working a 9-to-5 job in a cubicle every day, going to the mailbox, picking up your mail and buying your groceries and saying hi to the lady at the store just doesn't give you the opportunity to explore. So like for me, sometimes I feel like a fucking idiot because I have a podcast. Like when I tell people that I have a podcast, it sounds like such a, like I'm just jerking myself off. Like, oh, like I'm good at talking to people. You should listen to me talk to other people because
you're a good listener. You listened to my story. You can't,
I guess.
That's it, man. You can't tell a fucking story if no one's listening. I wouldn't just like sit here and just like tell that story. That's the beautiful thing. Like you provide opportunities for people to tell you stories, and that's like, watch those earlobes grow, man. That's wise.
I feel
wise
like
man shit.
I feel like
wizard.
Thank you. So much of today is bullshit. Like there's so much filler. There's so much stuff that they want you to consume while you're taking a shit. Like there's things that they know that they have you for a 10-minute window, and they want to shove as much content down your face hole as they can while you poop. And like everyone is so busy. Gross. It's more of like, because we are in such a, like, in my opinion, an Adderall culture, everybody, if, you know, me putting out this podcast has the potential to fuck up a job in the future, because somebody could listen to it and say, oh, Eric's done psychedelic drugs, well, we're not going to harm him for this thing. And so many people are so paranoid about fucking up every little thing that you just forget to fucking live. Like you forget to be in the moment, and you forget to just let go of all of that other stuff. I call it one of my favorite experiences, and one of the ones I'm most familiar with it is like the afterglow of music. And for me personally, it's as a guitar player, when you're jamming with your friends and you get to the point where you're no longer embarrassed or afraid or worried about making a mistake with your playing technically, that you can finally loosen up. And like, I've played shit music when you're in the zone and in the moment that I don't know if I'll ever be able to recreate, because you're just there. And then you hit that final chord and everything stops. And as the amps and the volume and everything just kind of like, whoa, 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 comes down. And you just like look at each other, and everybody gets this smile on their face like, whoa, man, did you feel it? Yeah, I felt it. That was fucking cool.
Yeah, man. Yeah. We got that in hip-hop
that's
too.
What I want. That's what I want. More of that. More of the feeling it with the other people that you're with right there, when you can look at them and be like, you get it? Yeah, you got it. Sweet. Let's do it again.
They do a sweat lodge in the First Nations people. It's like that, where you like go you open your eyes afterwards and look at everyone, and yes, it's like that. You pray together and you sweat together, and it's, and it's totally intentional. And like, man, music. And on the subject of feeling lame when I like DJing and I like it, and I feel like such a fucking nincompoop when they're like, oh yeah, like, what do you do this weekend? Like, oh, I have a gig. And they're like, what kind of gig? I'm like, oh, I'm a DJ. Just,
yeah, man.
I'm sorry.
I used to DJ. I get it. I used to DJ.
Sorry, I like to DJ.
There's a cool thing about it. Like, so I did it back when everything was on CDs, and I had gigantic 4x4, like 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom, and then flipped over packs of CDs.
Yeah,
3 of them with a master list and a binder, switching CDs all the time. But like, when you can be a conduit to other people enjoying their night, like, that's a rewarding thing. It's a really cool thing when, like, I played this one show that was like, I think it was the Saskatoon Filipino Association. They had their Christmas party at a hotel, and by luck of whatever the booking was with the company I was working with, I got to go and DJ that event. And at the beginning of the thing, I was like feeling really full of myself and just like, I'm going to play the shit out of this show. It's going to go so well. And I played all these songs that I thought they were going to be so popular. Empty dance floor.
Yeah.
Next song. Empty dance floor. Next song. Empty dance floor. People are coming up to me and going, why are you playing this music? And eventually I had to totally turn the music over to the people that were there and like put something that wasn't, so chosen by a white guy in university that doesn't have any experience, but like play something that actually appealed to them and their personal taste. Like, it was such a humbling thing. But then when you get out of your own way and help people, or help myself, connect better to the shit that's around me, I feel like those are the most rewarding experiences that I have.
Yeah, big time. And then by get out of your own way, so I've been studying psychoanalysis and psychodynamic theories of humans for a while. And that would be like, we talk about it in the psychedelic experience, the dissolution of the ego, where you have but it's kind of tricky because Freud breaks it. If the ego dissolves, then what's having the relationship with the thing around it? Is it the id? I don't know. I don't know if the structural approach that Freud proposes is accurate or not. But it is that, though. You get to experience, like, beginner's mind they talk about in Eastern philosophy, where you experience reality as though it is for the first time with the skill set that you already have, and you get to interact with it and create. And it's amazing. Yeah, that's being alive. That's the best part of being alive, I think. And that's like, yeah, it's great. The internet doesn't get that. But they do, because we're all doing that on the internet.
Well, it's a weird version of it that gives you like strange serotonin dumps when you check on it and your shit gets, oh, I got another like. Oh my God, I got 4 more likes. Yeah. Oh, somebody shared it. I wonder who else is going to read this. Is somebody else going to like it? Maybe they'll like it too. Maybe it'll go viral. Maybe millions of people will see my thing.
See,
and I'll be famous.
I don't think that.
I don't either, but lots of fucking people do.
Man, maybe this will go viral. It's too long.
Maybe.
It's too long. It's like 2 hours long. No one can listen to it. So the best we can hope for...
Fuck that shit. Rogan has one of the most successful podcasts on Earth, and they're on average 3 hours long.
Oh, really?
Oh. Yeah, man. He gets millions and millions and millions of downloads. Averages, like, I think last time I read, makes like 70 or 80 grand per episode from his sponsors.
Damn.
Like, hundreds of millions of people have listened to him talk for 3 hours, and sometimes he's just bullshitting with his friends.
Right. That sounds great. I think Jordan Peterson was on Rogan.
He's got some great episodes with Jordan Peterson. Yeah. Great episodes. So that's like, this is me trying to recreate that cool feeling that he seems to get talking to people about really interesting things.
Right.
I guess that's what it comes down to.
Nice. I don't think I've ever listened to a Rogan podcast.
So be prepared to be called a dude bro as soon as you do, and like a meathead. And Rogan gets a bad rap sometimes. He does seem to, like, I think that he does have a reasonably balanced perspective, and he talks about psychedelic use and his own psychedelic use, and he promotes a lot of it, and it's interesting. Some of them are throwaway bullshit episodes, some of them are really good.
Just like anything, I guess.
So, yeah, pretty much.
I'm hungry. Oh yeah, so my work, which we talked about, I do some work with people with people who have experienced trauma, which kind of relates to something you want to talk about at UBC. Just before we close off
Right.
here.
Yeah. So we can definitely get onto this. So I just recently saw this yesterday. UBC Okanagan to host talks on using psychedelics to treat PTSD. The UBC Okanagan campus is hosting a free talk on Thursday, November 2nd. That was yesterday. The return of psychedelic psychotherapy, a pioneer's perspective from a healing frontier.
What was the name of the speaker? Sorry, what was the speaker's name?
Researchers Richard Jensen and Donna Dreyer have spent several decades looking at the effects of people who use psychedelic drugs in psychotherapy, and their project has received $15.5 million in federal funding. They say it'll be great for people to come and see and learn about the history of psychedelics in therapy and get a sense of what's going on right now and what's been happening in the last decade with MDMA, magic mushrooms, cannabis, ketamine, and acid. Says Michelle Thiessen, a graduate student of clinical psychology at the UBC. So I guess it happened yesterday. You can't go and see it, but I just wanted to say, like, you know, there seems to be a lot of progress, a lot of steps being made towards helping people that have experienced real trauma, real issues, and want to try to make those things better for themselves, everybody around them, their own mental progression. I mean, I didn't feel like I personally tried psychedelics because I had trauma to overcome specifically. Perhaps it'll help me if I do and I don't realize it, but if you feel like nothing's worked so far, and I don't fucking know, you'd know better than I would when to recommend psychedelics to a person for something like this.
It's very specific, very, 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 very specific sort of things you don't want to do. I've already outlined it in our last podcast, but yeah. There are
so
times
I
when
guess
you absolutely do not ever do psychedelics, like when you're pregnant, for example, or you think you might be.
So
pregnant.
Anyway, the good thing is that there's more research going on, and it's just going to keep getting better and better, and we're going to learn more and more as we go. So that's all that I really have for that today. Is there anything else you wanted to say? You want to plug your music festival? Where can people get details about that?
Oh yeah, people can get details from Solsask, SOLSASK. On Facebook.
Okay. I'll put a link in the YouTube description, and definitely make sure that we send people there. Brandon, we got to do this more. This one was really good. We were I think this is 2 hours-ish.
1:45.
So perfect. That's wicked. Okay, man. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure. Thanks for listening.
Okay, great.